Today's readings give us a roadmap for navigating through times of great difficulty, when it all seems like just too much. In the first book of Kings, we hear a famous story of Solomon, the third king of Israel, following Saul and David, his father. Confronted with so many needs and concerns around him, Solomon sees in his dreams God offering him whatever he wants. Now, he could have very easily asked for tangible things to make him happy, or lifelong security, safety from severe illness, or for his political enemies to be annihilated. But he saw past those things. He knew none of those things would bring true peace in the hard work of being a ruler of God's people. Instead, he asked for wisdom, and God grants that, along with many other things. Indeed, Solomon went on to become world-renowned for his wisdom, even until today. And he is a model for us to consider when we ask God in prayer for what we truly need. However, he's also a cautionary tale. Eventually, Solomon stopped doing the things in his life that he needed to do to keep his focus on God's wisdom and doing the things that God wanted. He became too self-absorbed and eventually even turned away from God and worshiped idols. So even wise Solomon could get self-absorbed, and in the end, it was a reckoning for him. Jesus, on the other hand, in the Gospel of Mark, as he always does, points towards the best way. In the midst of the many difficulties and demands on his time, and those of the apostles proclaiming the reign of God to so many people and responding to their needs for food, for healing, for hope, they got tired. Jesus, who is God's wisdom in the flesh, realizes they all need to step away to be refreshed and renewed in spirit. But it seems the people's needs for Jesus are never fulfilled. And they beat a path to the apostles and where Jesus are, even before they could fully get there and rest. Even in that moment, when the needs of the disciples and for himself, for rejuvenation, were most important, Jesus found in the well of his relationship with the Father a deeper wisdom. A recognition that compassion and care, even in the most trying of times, can bring a rejuvenation of spirit, even when it seemed impossible. When Jesus is moved with pity for the crowds and for their needs, his inner wisdom gives him the ability to respond as he naturally always does, with care. He knew that there would still be time for rest to come, but at that moment, he gave what he could. By not being exclusive in his care for himself or those closest to him at that moment, Jesus ensured that all those in need, including himself and his disciples, could experience the abundance of God's care. In that moment, Jesus reminds us that sometimes God's wisdom has a larger view than we can see. What might our world be like today if every Christian responded in this way to the needs that we see before us? Sometimes we must take time to step back from the challenges we face and bring them to our prayer so that we can see them in God's larger perspective through divine wisdom. We do this through regular and active participation in the Eucharist, when Christ always comes to his church through the assembly, through the Word, and through the sacrament of the altar. Some do it by lighting a candle as they sip their morning coffee or tea and reflect on the day to come. Others may pray the rosary as a calming and centering prayer. There are many ways we can pray for and find God's wisdom, and it only takes a few minutes each day. So as we move through these difficult days and their many challenges, perhaps we can cultivate one of these wisdom habits. And when God comes to us in the deepest parts of our souls and asks what we most want, we'll be able to respond as Jesus before us, with wisdom joined with compassion and a commitment to living our lives and responding to the many needs that we encounter, with trust in the larger wisdom and vision of God for ourselves and for our whole world. By cultivating that wisdom which comes from the Spirit, we can readily pray with happiness the words of today's psalm. Lord, teach me your statutes and help me to keep your words. God give you peace.